Hello, and welcome to the Break the Twitch podcast on minimizing distractions and doing more of what matters through minimalism, habits, and creativity. I'm your host, Anthony Ongaro. In this episode, I sit down with Thompson Aderinkomi. He's an entrepreneur and the founder of two startups, Nice Healthcare and Relate. We talk about everything from his path to entrepreneurship, managing risks, minimalism, life with kids, and how to do the most efficient workout and ones that we both really enjoy. Thompson shares how his desire for freedom, changing the world, and revenge have motivated him to take on the $3.5 trillion healthcare industry. In addition, we discuss how small, intentional choices can add up to big results over time in lifestyle, exercise, diet, and more. This conversation will inspire you to make some intentional choices in your life. I learned a lot and had several of my own revelations during this discussion, and I'm sure that you're going to enjoy it as well. And of course, this podcast is brought to you both ad and sponsor free by the Break the Twitch member community, something I'd love to invite you to join as well. Members get monthly audio courses, access to a private member-only Slack channel, and even a 20-minute one-on-one welcome call with me so I can show you around the place and get to know you a bit. Join this amazing intentional living-focused online community. Find out more at breakthetwitch.com/community. But for now, let's start the show. Thompson, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm thrilled to have you here. It's been a couple years since we've met up, but you've been up to some pretty fascinating and awesome things since then and even before then.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've been keeping busy.
Yeah, you can say that.
So I know you've been on the entrepreneurship path for a long time. We met, in fact, the very first time at Startup Weekend.
Yeah.
Which was now what seems like an eternity ago, maybe 2013-ish, 2012. But I think you were actually doing a health-based startup at Startup Weekend.
Yeah.
What was that?
It was, I'm trying to think what it was. I think Nicole Muzzy, had pulled a group together. So it wasn't my idea or project. I joined a team, at Startup Weekend. And it was something around mental health, but not directly mental health. It was for mental health providers. I think the team stuck together after a while to try and make it a go. I went my own ways, to work on my own thing, but it was a lot of fun, kind of rapidly prototyping that thing. And I still think that there's a business case for it even today.
Definitely. I remember that now. And at the time, for context, I was working on a startup in Startup Weekend called, I think it was either Call Your Mom or Call Your Auntie.
I feel like I remember this.
Remember
yeah.
that?
Uh-huh.
And it was, to me, a very cool thing that sort of ties into what I do now, which is maybe being more intentional about social media and stuff. And so having an app that you just call up the people you haven't talked to in a while.
Yes.
But it didn't really go anywhere. And I don't know if our team really even got anything out of that, working out of it or anything. So
No, you guys did. You surely did.
Or, in terms of experience and learning, I'm sure maybe that was the takeaway. But there was no working product after that.
Okay.
That's for sure. Yeah. Interesting. So how did you get into entrepreneurship, or what was the appeal for you? Did it start early on?
Yeah. I mean, I'm fortunate that my family is made up of entrepreneurs. So I grew up with parents that own their own business. I don't remember my parents working for someone else. Like, I can't visualize it. I know they did, so they started their business when I was fairly young, so for me, owning your own business was normal, or is normal, and getting a regular job was probably more abnormal, or a regular job, I should say, a job, where you're not the owner of the company. So I would say that's where the initial ideas came from. And so it was already normalized for me from that standpoint. So I didn't view it, my family didn't view it as taking this big risk or this big innovative thing. And like, oh, you're so amazing and so courageous. Like, no, it's just the normal way of, making a living. But still yet, I still went and got a job after I graduated from the University of Minnesota. And I did work at the family company, for some time, for about 4 or 5 years. Then I started getting jobs outside. And it was just in working in the corporate environment that I started becoming a little bit dissatisfied with the way things were structured, from a economic standpoint to a business process standpoint to a risk and reward standpoint. And then I went back to school, again, and realized that I didn't want to just get another degree just to go get another job. That I needed to move up my timeline, for starting my own company. Because I always planned on starting my own company. It's just when was the question. So 2009 is when I kind of, in earnest, started working my own company full time.
So you said you didn't want to go back just to get another job after. What did you go back to school for?
Yeah, so just for a little bit of context, so I studied economics and statistics, and I got a master's degree in statistics, and worked in that field, for some time. And quickly kind of moved out of just an analyst role into more leadership roles. And then I went to get my MBA at the Carlson School, thinking that I would stay within the business side of things, but kind of climb the corporate ladder, do the whole thing, then maybe start my own company, when I'm like 50, and, already done all I can in the corporate world. But I realized I didn't want to spend my days, between the ages of, 20 something and 50, just slaving away in corporate, for something I may or may not believe in, to never see my family and never have time to invest in my hobbies. So went to business school, and, it just opened my eyes very quickly, like in the first couple of weeks. It wasn't like I was 1 year in, I was like, oh no, I should start a company. It was the first week, and I was like, oh no, I shouldn't come here and go back to work. Like, I should start my own company.
Okay, so you said that it opened your eyes. In what way? Describe that experience for me. What was that like when you got there and had that sensation?
What happened was I applied like very short notice, because I wasn't planning on going back to business school. I just kind of decided I should go back to business school. It's a good idea. And then I did it, and in the summer, in a couple months leading up to school starting, I asked for the alumni database. And I asked it for, because I want to start networking with alumni, to get to know them and why they chose the school and what they're doing after, to see what I can learn and glean from their experiences. And so I spent, the summer, doing all these meetings with top executives at all the local, Fortune, 100 companies, and even some smaller companies on the finance side. I started noticing something. They were all kind of the same. They're all men, unfortunately, but they were all men at the time. This is 2009, and they all liked their job. Like, no one would say anything bad about their job. But I would ask them questions like, well, how did you get here? And nobody knew how they got there. It was just totally, I don't know how I got here. I just worked hard and I just got here. And I was like, oh, great. It doesn't help me. It doesn't help someone like me. Life's not just going to happen, for me. And so that was just like an issue that I had with it. And then, they all were like traveling all the time. They're working these crazy hours. And, I was like, well, how do you have time to like spend time with your partner, your spouse, your kids, and all this kind of stuff? I was like, there's only 24 hours in the day, and if you're sleeping for this much and so on and so forth. And I just started realizing that's not the life that I wanted. And then finally I was just like, well, I know why you would like this job. Why would someone like a job like that? Well, if you're getting paid, $300,000 or more a year, and everybody smiles at you because you have the title, and all you do is go to meetings and make an occasional decision, probably only like 1 or 2 really critical decisions per year, I realized that I wouldn't like that. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do something that would make a difference. I wanted to do something that would challenge me. I wanted to do something that would create wealth, and going a corporate route, and always my future being tied to someone's opinion of me and evaluation of me didn't sit well with me. I'm much more comfortable with the market judging me, and that being the deciding factor, or the thing that dictates how far and how fast I go.
To me, I'm hearing it sounded like you chose yourself.
Yep.
And that's a powerful thing. There's the James Altucher book, Choose Yourself, and everything you're saying to me is like, oh wow, it's an incredible thing to make that decision, especially when it sounds like you have the ability to have that.
Yeah.
I mean, you
no,
do.
I most certainly did. Yeah,
yeah, of course. Yeah. And you very much were in that route, it sounds like, also, and then you made a conscious decision to opt out and opt into something else.
Yes.
Was there a conversation that happened with your parents, like you said, or with your family or your partner? Was there something that happened, and you said there wasn't really a lot of resistance with that? Because I know that's a big thing for people sometimes, is I'm going the untraditional route.
Yeah. Yeah. What was more untraditional was quitting my job and going to school full time again for a second master's degree, because that's a little unusual, like, why would you do that? And my goal was to like become a manager, at my previous company that I was at before business school, and I got promoted 3 times in like a year, and I was doing just fine, so, to leave that all behind and get like a second master's degree was kind of weird versus like, why don't you go get a PhD, it's kind of like the more usual route, so that was, I already overcame that, right? My wife was very supportive, Hannah. She's been very supportive, and for her, she's not afraid of, entrepreneurship and the risk, and because, one of the reasons why I guess we're kindred spirits is we're not attached to material things. We don't fear, the loss, of physical items. And that's really the only risk in this country, when you start your own company. There's the loss of things that you can touch and feel and grind between your teeth. And we don't need those things because we can get them back if we so desired. I could go get a job, work for a couple of years, and I'd be back with a car payment, a mortgage, and all that's, the trappings of American life. So, very supportive. My parents, this is very natural. Like, he's starting a company. Of course, he's starting a company like that. Makes perfect sense. That it wasn't like even a discussion, really.
Okay, so we've got to dig into this because you talked about materialism and the idea of that's all there is to lose in this context, right? Is this something you've always just believed inherently? Is this something you came into? Was there a moment that you discovered the temporary nature of just excess stuff?
I can't point to a moment, or to an event. I think it was just an understanding. My wife likes to joke that if I never met her and I never got married, I'd probably be a monk in the desert,
wow.
In Egypt, living in a cave, communing with the universe. That's just where I tend towards, on a personality scale. And so I just don't care. I like stuff, but it's usually tied to some passion of mine. Like, I like music, so therefore I like high quality sound. So I don't buy cheap speakers, and I'm at a stage in my life where the safety of my family on the road is of paramount, importance to me, as well as being a good steward of the earth. So, I spent more on a car than I would, 10 years ago, to get a car that fits those modes. So it's not that I don't, buy into those things, but I just don't care. Like, I wear the same thing every day pretty much. It's black. It's either a sports coat and a tie, or a black hoodie and jeans. My wife is my best friend, so I already have everything that I need. I don't need any more friends. I don't need any more acquaintances. I don't need a bigger network. I got her. I got 2 healthy sons. They don't have any health problems. So the older I get, I just have been accumulating these things that really matter. And there's no startup that can give or take those things away from me. And then there's just a practical issue, right? Like people, for me and my wife, we like just walk through it. Like, okay, let's suppose that we use our 401k, to start my first company, which didn't work out. What's the impact? Well, we don't have a 401k. Like, that's the impact. What's the impact if we can't make a house payment? Well, it takes like a year to kick someone out of a house in this state. because of the cold weather. You know, in a year you could probably figure something out, you know, and say a year goes by and you can't, well, then you move in with your parents, you know, with your kids. Like there's plenty of people that do that because they have to. And there's people that do that because they want to, you know. We've been a one-car family since we've been married for 14 years. And we think it instills discipline that forces collaboration and communication, you know, and it's just better for the environment because then you're more likely to walk, bike, or take the bus. You know, if the other person like has to, you know, use a car for something. It's little choices that turn into habits that, you know, separate you from an unnatural longing and attachment to physical things.
Well said. Well said. We also have one car. We've done that since we got married as well. We've always maneuvered our lives in a way where it would be probably more convenient in some circumstances, but Amy ended up taking the light rail to work for a year instead of, you know, just commuting and parking. Those subtle changes. I really liked what you said about just the little changes that become the habits we make. Those little things totally add up.
Yep.
And become something new and something different, and it becomes this thing. At least in our own lives, we've seen that too. It's just the small choices.
Yes.
To buy a smaller house.
Yes.
To stay in the city.
Yep.
To
same thing.
Just try to make ourselves more accessible to public transit and the
yes.
things that have allowed us to dive into entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Because we made certain choices about each thing along the way, and we have a 2009 Subaru that's paid off, and you know,
yeah.
it still 4-wheel drive still works great,
yeah.
you know,
yeah.
For the winter and everything here, and increasingly, I still feel like I have so much further to go along this path of these small intentional
yes.
choices.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to know what, if you can kind of think through some of those or explain some of those choices, what do you see as the landscape of some of those things? You named some already, but
yeah, you know, we've made the same choices. We've chosen to stay in the city, you know, so we're Northeast, and you know, we're less than a mile outside of downtown because that's where a lot of business transacts for me. You know, my wife owns a business, you know, and it has a bricks and mortar, you know, component to it. So it's half a mile from our house. You know, we could get better places where there's more clientele and there's more customers, more traffic, but that wouldn't fit our life. You know, we've chosen to, we always decided that from the beginning we didn't want to put our kids in daycare. You know, so we have 2 sons, and so the first son, Enoch, my wife stayed home with him, you know, and he went to, you know, not daycare, but preschool, you know, a couple hours a week, you know, but my wife stayed home with him. She did a little consulting on the side, you know, while I was working on my company. So and that was very stressful, you know, to kind of force that simplicity in our lives, you know, where single income, but the single income is someone starting a company from scratch, you know, and it's not like starting a coffee shop or a restaurant where it's like this known quantity. It was like this thing that no one had heard of, you know, so we made that decision. You know, our kids are in public school. A lot of our friends, you know, start off in the city, you know, and then they have kids. The kids get a couple years older and they move out of the city, you know, go to private school, you know, or get bigger house, more yard. You know, we've chosen to stay small that way. There's this one book that my wife and I were listening to many years ago, and basically one of the theses of the first couple chapters was kind of this American obsession with like fixing everything. Mm-hmm. And this guy was dying. He was terminal, you know, and they had this nice minivan, and eventually got this big dent in the door. Like someone just dented it really bad. And so his whole world perspective changed because he was terminal. And his gut reaction was like, oh, we got to go fix that door. Like, we got to fix it, you know, but they had a big deductible and insurance, all this kind of stuff. But he's like, wait a minute. Like, I'm going to be dead in a year. You know, what does a dent in the door, you know, matter? The car still works. You know, it has not impacted its utility even an iota, you know, and he thought to himself that he doesn't know if he would have came to that conclusion if he was in a different situation, but he thinks that he should come to that conclusion. You know, so for us, there's just been like things that, like our house, there's like 10 million things that you could fix in our 1928, you know, house, you know, in Northeast Minneapolis. And we could plow all of our income and fix it, make everything perfect, make everything shiny, you know, have all the best furniture and everything. And we've just chosen, not to do that. We don't have a cabin, we don't have a vacation home, we don't have all these things. And our focus has really been on creating cash flow. Like, how do you create cash flow that you don't have to be working in it, every day? And how do you minimize? My wife and I oftentimes stand in our house and we just look around, and we're like, what can we get out of here? What can we just get rid of? Even if it's something that we use, we say we don't use it very often. Like, how do we get it out of here? I've been using the tool library more, in Minneapolis versus, buying your own tools. We've tried to share things with our neighbors, things that make sense versus buying them. And it's really kind of sharing, I think, is probably one key thing that you can do to reduce your footprint. And I don't know, we have this conversation so much, all the time. I'm sure we could think of so many things, but it's interesting, even digitally, one of the problem with digital is it doesn't take up any physical space, but it takes up space in your mind, and it takes up space in your file system, in your digital file system. And so we apply the same theory there, why are we saving these things, or if we're going to save them, at least organize it in a way so it's not just unruly, and crazy. And here's one for parents. Your kid goes to school and every day they come back with, a tree's worth of paper. Some of the stuff, it's artwork, crafts, some of it's school announcements. And we've just gotten really good at encouraging our son to throw some stuff away. You just throw it away. You're going to be producing things for the next, 12 years. We take pictures of some of it, things that we do. So I would say that's some of the, top of mind stuff right now.
Yeah. Okay. I have to tackle this in multiple parts now. Okay. So for one, you've just created this image in my mind of risk, and you've just fundamentally changed my perspective and given me a new idea around this, which is the idea of mitigating risk. I think risk is commonly associated with the idea of losing a job, losing income maybe, or having an accident or something that's uncontrollable. Yes. Things that other people control or the world and the ether controls as mitigating risk, trying to manage those things. But what I'm hearing from you is basically that, and I believe this as well. We've followed a very similar pursuit in our 1950s home, where we spent the last few months making this space into what it is now, but the rest of our home is, pretty much what it has been. We painted, did some things, but there's a lot of things that we could do to make it look like a certain thing in a magazine, or make it look like something's supposed to look. Correct. Or we get into this a lot with the minimalism space, is what minimalism is supposed to look like. Yes. You have big windows and brick walls and timber in your place and open airy tea on a white duvet cover. It's how does that happen? I don't think that actually happens. No. This seems like an art form more than anything. Yes. But what I'm hearing and now feeling is risk in the things you have around you, and the experiences, and the stuff you curate in your life, the car with the payment, the house that's out of the city, then the private tuition and things, is the risk. Yes. And it's the risk you can control largely. Yes. And mitigating risk is making these choices around fixing, around trying to keep up with the Joneses. Obviously, there's functional fixing, right? But the idea of this stuff, it's easy to get lost in that stuff.
It is. It's so easy. I'm not a handy person by any means. My sword is an Excel spreadsheet, and starting companies. But I've been fixing stuff more myself, but there's always some utility, around it. Like our door handles are original on the house, and one of the back door handles it wasn't going to last any longer, so I finally installed a new electronic doorknob with the keypad and everything. It's smart, can connect it to smart things and everything, and that was a big deal for me, because normally we would not spend that kind of money on our house. It was an expensive. I'm totally transparent. I think the doorknob, Home Depot, I think it was $200, a $200 doorknob. But one of my previous co-founder in the last company, one thing that he taught me, is that one thing that you should couple with minimalism and a detachment from the material things is that the things you do get should be high quality. They should be high quality, and you should understand the sourcing, so that your desire to save money isn't, basically impoverishing some person halfway around the world that you may never meet. So we've definitely been balancing those two things within our household, but by being very selective, about those things and making sure they don't increase our risk, as well. Because what we don't want is our family burn rate to get to a level that's difficult to fill. As long as we keep that personal household burn rate, at a reasonable level, there's nothing that can stop us. Either our businesses will pay our bills, or we can do some consulting that will pay the bills, or we will go get a job, that will pay the bills. It's all about that personal burn rate.
Yeah, it's freedom beyond that. Yeah.
It is.
I've met some people, now you are one of them as well, that had this sort of drive within them. The culture is pulling in one way, and you made that choice. You just put a stop to it. It's always fascinating to me where that comes from, that inner drive.
Yeah, I don't know where it came from. I mean, part of it you could say is faith-based. I was raised Protestant, Christian, with all of the, frameworks and philosophies around that, so that framework is, aligned with Christianity. But oftentimes you see people that call themselves Protestants or Christians are the most materialistic people you've ever met. They're the ones with the biggest houses and biggest yards and biggest cars and 3 cabins, all the stuff. So I wouldn't say that is enough to draw someone in that direction. And I'm also not saying it's wrong. Like, some people just like stuff. Like, they like buying things and shiny things, and they like flying all over the place. Like, I would be a monk in a different life. I wouldn't have anything, and I would be by myself, trying to attain some higher level of existence. That's just where I'm at, and that's just my natural tendency. I'm perfectly comfortable and happy being still. Like, I don't require new experiences, whether it's a thing or a place, or anything. Like, I have my favorite foods, and I could eat those every day. I write music, and I like to write fiction, and I could lose myself in those activities, for months, years, and to me, it would feel like I was traveling through the universe, if anything, without meeting another soul. I know that's not healthy to do, and I know that the world needs everybody to kind of look out for the people around them. So that's why I don't completely let myself go in the natural direction that I would go. But I think that for me, it is that kind of, it's that contentedness, and that I don't have that drive, to go on trips. Like, if it wasn't for my wife, I probably wouldn't go on any trips. She likes to go on trips. She likes new experiences. So that's how that comes into my life, and it's good. It enriches me. Some of the stuff, Hannah, if you're listening to this, you know what I'm talking about. Some of that stuff is wacky, but but for the most part, it's very enriching, and being with her and having her just be so, happy and alive, is payment enough, for me, as far as I'm concerned.
How do you stay motivated while also maintaining a sense of contentedness? Because I think that's what so many of us are looking for.
Yeah. I was talking to someone that wanted to network with me, and I was telling him my interpretation of the words satisfied and content. And for me, they're different. I mean, if you look them up, there's not much of a difference between satisfied and content, but for me, semantically, satisfied is you don't need any more. You don't need any more progress, per se. That's satisfied. Whereas content is more about, it's more about the acknowledging your temporal location, and saying, I'm okay to be here. You're not going to be there forever, but you're okay to be there, and to me, it's an acknowledgement that everything changes, because you could be in a really bad spot and be content. Certainly wouldn't be satisfied. Like if you're in pain, you don't want to be satisfied. Sometimes bad stuff happens with business, and you just have to be content with this is business, but certainly you wouldn't just lay down and be like, okay, I'm going to let my business like stay here forever. You're not going to do that. So that's one thing. And then for me, there's like you asked about drive, so for me, drive relates to whether I'm satisfied or content with a certain, thing, or with where I am at a point. So for me, there's three things. So one is I'm pursuing freedom. Freedom is what I ultimately want. I want freedom to lie in bed with my wife like for a week and not have to even get up, or open the blinds. I want freedom to be able to read every single piece of paper my son brings back from school. I can't do that today. I want freedom to work in our garden and make it the best garden. I want freedom. And for me, the freedom is more associated with time, with how I spend my time, more so than with the freedom to like buy anything I want. That's not what I want, or that's not the freedom I'm talking about. So that drives me. Like I very much want that, and I want it in short order. I'm not talking about freedom when I'm 60. I'm talking about freedom like very soon, a couple years, single digits. The second thing is this acknowledgement that we need to leave the earth in a better place than we found it. And right now, one of the ways to do that is through capitalism. I don't like that it's one of the best ways to do it, but I do believe it is one of the best ways to do it today. Better than nonprofits, better than going on a mission trip, better than the church. I think capitalism is one of the most efficient ways if it's run by the right people, and I love Star Trek, Next Generation, and there's this one episode, where these people from the 21st century were brought back, like they had, frozen themselves, and they came back, during, they're on the Starship Enterprise, and just observing the culture shock between humans like 300-400 years from now and humans today was fascinating, even though it was fiction. Like the humans of the future were so perplexed by capitalism, like so perplexed, like it just didn't make any sense, and the people from the 21st century were so perplexed by the lack of capitalism, and then all the things that come from either having that or not having that. So capitalism is necessary today. It doesn't always work, but in the right hands, it can be a very effective tool for affecting change, in this world today. And I believe that it's my responsibility to engage in that activity, to make the world better for individuals, for people. So you can see that in I have two companies. One of them is Relate, and Relate, the first product was a relationship chatbot, essentially, with the goal of just helping people have better relationships, with their partner, significant other, like whatever you want to call it. It's a passion of mine for people to have better relationships, because I believe the world will be better if every romantic relationship reaches its full potential. Whatever that relationship is, man, woman, woman, and everything in between. We just need those relationships to be like top notch, 11 on a 10-point scale. Nice healthcare is about making healthcare better. Healthcare is like messed up today, like beyond belief. It's ridiculous. And you have millions of people in the industry that convince themselves that they're doing good work. Really, they're just hurting the country and hurting individuals by perpetuating what they're doing. So that leads me to my third driver, which is just good old-fashioned revenge. Like a lot of people think I'm very genteel and polite, and I don't know, a lot of people think I'm nice, and one of my previous employees, she corrected someone, and she was like, Thompson's not nice, he's just polite. I'm not nice about these things I'm passionate about. Like, I want to tear down systems, and there will be collateral damage. I mean, people will lose jobs, people will lose their homes, lose their cars, but I think we have to look at the greater good. We can't have this industry, acting like a tapeworm on the economy, and also people are actually dying or in pain because it's healthcare. There's no reason for that to be happening in this United States of America. So I want to tear those systems down, and the people that are running them deserve to have what they've built and are maintaining taken away, and I'm going to do that to them. So those are my 3 drivers.
Those are obviously incredibly motivating things. Yeah. Healthcare has been an interesting and difficult thing for Amy and me, especially over the course of our careers. We've quit jobs that had health plans at different times. We've been doing this entrepreneurship thing for the last year and 2 months, which has proven to be incredibly challenging in the sense of getting good healthcare. When we were at jobs, we had decent deductibles that were relatively manageable. Thank goodness. Well, I say this with a knee that is swollen right now and having issues, but in general, we're both healthy. We're blessed to be healthy, so we don't really have prescriptions, things that we need, but we every month are paying hundreds of dollars a month just to, right now, not break the law, obviously, but also prevent ourselves from and our families from being bankrupted. If I get hit by a bus tomorrow, if I have a cardiac condition. And then there's a whole other side of this. I've been working out, and just yesterday I was on set on a video production, and my knee just started swelling up and started hurting a lot. And it hasn't happened in years, so I'm a little freaked out about it. So this is a good example.
Yeah.
If I went in and got x-rays right now, what maybe could that prevent down the line? Might I be able to get preventative care instead of something that's going to get worse over time? But I'm not going to, because we have high deductible plans.
Yes.
So this has been my experience with healthcare in a lot of ways, and it's been one of the biggest burdens to building what I consider our own change-making business, our own change-making platform to be able to have these conversations as well.
Yeah.
What is it about that got you into healthcare? What is the kind of change you're working on making with Nice Healthcare?
Yeah, and we got to get you an X-ray, so we can do that. Like Nice, we'll get you X-rayed right here in the comfort of your own home. So we'll take care of that for you. You know, but I've heard this story so many times. My wife had a similar situation, you know, with a different joint than her knee, you know, where if healthcare was working the way it was supposed to, you know, would have sought care really early on, you know, and prevented some irreversible damage. You know, so with healthcare, it goes back to what I was saying about my parents. My parents' company is a healthcare company, you know, so I've just always been in healthcare, like at the nitty gritty. I mean, I've seen they're in the home care business, so it's, you know, working with very elderly, sick, fragile people, you know, so I was seeing healthcare from that side. I was working in the finance area of the family companies, so I was seeing healthcare finance, transactions, claims, codes, like contracts, you know, all that stuff, dealing with different insurances in the state. You know, so I got a really, really strong introduction to healthcare that most people don't get, you know, very holistic. You know, but then I just started seeing the kinks, you know, in the industry, you know, these things that just weren't right. You know, healthcare, we spend $3.5 trillion on healthcare in this country. $3.5 trillion, you know,
with a T.
With a T, you know, you can't even talk about trillion. Like, what's a trillion? Nobody knows what a trillion is. You know, you can't. There's no analogies for it that even make any sense. You know, because it's so big. You could have a lot if you could just shave off 10, 20, 30, 50% of that, and we know that 10, 20, 30, 50% of it is just being wasted or going to people's pockets, pure inefficiencies. You know, there's people getting rich. You look at jobs reports, you know, everybody celebrates, oh, you know, the jobs report came in, the economy is doing great. Well, all the freaking growth is in healthcare. Like, who cares if, you know, job growth is 5%, but 90% of the new jobs are in healthcare, which are just going to increase your premiums for the people that have the jobs. So you're actually making less money. It doesn't make any sense. The healthcare crisis is the single most important thing we need to solve, like, in this country. Like, all of the other stuff that's happening, all of the angst and the division would dissipate or at least be significantly reduced if you could solve healthcare. Like, can you imagine the average household, if you do all the math, really directly or indirectly, 25% of their income is going towards healthcare. Mm-hmm. What if you could give everybody a 20% raise? Like everybody, 20% more income. And because healthcare costs less, you're getting the care that you need when you're supposed to get it. So you're healthier, you're safer, your mental health is better, you're less stressed out. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. So that's why I'm so flummoxed and just honestly pissed off by the industry and the people in it perpetuating it and insisting that these incremental changes that they're promulgating, parading around as innovation is actually going to do anything. Mm-hmm. We heard your story firsthand here, and that is a common story. And people like you and me, we're not broke. We have a house, we have a car, we're educated, we've got a partner, stable. I mean, what about the people that aren't even at this level? It is such a crime what's happening today. It's a social justice issue as much as it is anything else. I'm obligated to create a solution that fixes healthcare and removes or punishes the people that are raining terror on our nation today. It's disgusting.
You talk about $3 trillion and $3.5 trillion, which $500 billion is like the half. You think it's easy to ignore, but that's $500 billion.
Yeah, normally you can round up on stuff. You can't round up.
You cannot.
You can't round
or down.
Or down.
Oh man, I have to think about the long-term growth of the U.S. economy, and that is having healthy workers, mm-hmm. people who are able to go back to work, which is what most people want.
Yes.
They want to go back to work and be able to provide for their families and do this stuff. But because we're not catching stuff early enough to actually be able to prevent things, because people are afraid, I feel like, to go in because they don't know how much it's going to cost even, right? It's just a surprise sometimes.
Yes.
You know so much more about this than I do, but just in my limited experience, I'm just imagining, like, what if half, like you said, of that money was given back into people's pockets and people were actually healthier and there's more money and people were able to go back to work sooner and available to be there for their families and drive the... It's like the long-term vision of this. How can you not see how that would be what's going to take us to the next era of prosperity?
Humans are evolving, and we're not going to evolve until we fix the healthcare thing. We're not going to reach the next level. We're not going to level up. It's like Mario Brothers, and we're stuck on level 1. It's like the most boring level there is anyways. We haven't even gotten to Bowser yet. We're over here like robbing people, past, present, future.
You're changing that.
Yes.
And what is Nice Healthcare doing right now already?
Yeah.
To start solving some of this?
Yeah. So when we describe Nice Healthcare to people, they usually look at us with this quizzical face because they don't believe that the words I'm saying could possibly be true. So first I have to describe what Nice Healthcare is. So Nice Healthcare is a clinic without any physical location, a primary care clinic without any physical location. And we can do anything a regular clinic can do. We can do labs, tests, x-rays, physical exams. We can manage your chronic condition. We can do all that stuff. But we do it in a little bit different way. So what we do is, instead of you coming to the clinic, you just pull up an app and you schedule a visit with us on your own time, your own schedule, and you have a chat visit or video visit securely within our app. And 70% of the time, we can resolve that issue via video or chat. And, half of all primary care visits need a prescription. So if you need a prescription, what we've done is we've looked at the most common prescriptions that are prescribed in a primary care setting, and we have those in our inventory, and you get those for free. Not a sample, like the full prescription. So imagine that you're on the video, you've pulled up the app, and we're talking to you, and you're like, oh, yep, you definitely have a sinus infection, and it's definitely bacterial. You need antibiotic. We'll have you that antibiotic the same day within a couple hours, no additional cost for the antibiotic, like none.
I can see what you're saying about people not really, because you can't probably see me while you were talking because the camera was on you, but I'm over here like grinning like an idiot because seems pretty amazing.
It is amazing, and that's just the beginning of it. So supposing that we can't solve your issue via video, we'll come to your house same day within an hour or two, and we'll do all the tests and exams and x-rays in your house. No additional charge at all. Say we get to your house and then we're like, oh yeah, you do need this antibiotic, you do need this drug. Then we'll just hand it to you. We wouldn't have had to deliver it to you. And we'll hand it to you at the end of the visit. No additional charge. We're open on weekends. We're open on weekdays. We treat people of all ages, newborn babies up to people in their 80s. And the thing is, our costs, that what we charge the patient cost is half as much as a regular clinic. So just let that sink in. Like, we're giving you free drugs, free labs and tests. There's no additional charge for anything. Labs and tests, we'll do all of them. No additional charge. We'll come to your house. Everything same day. Deliver prescriptions that we carry to your house. All of that at half the price as a regular clinic. And the way we operate is we operate under a membership model. So you just pay a fixed monthly fee, very affordable, and you have unlimited access, to this service. And most of our customers come to us through an employer. So an employer will pay for the membership for their employees because it's so cheap. Like, why wouldn't you as an employer be like, hey, everybody that works here, now have free primary care that comes to your house, and they'll deliver drugs to you, and they'll do the x-ray and the blood draws in your home. What employer wouldn't want to say that? So we're growing rapidly. People love the service. Our net promoter score is like through the roof, because people are just going crazy over this service. And they're saving money on top of it all, half the price of a regular clinic. So that is what Nice Healthcare is. And my co-founders and I, Genevieve and Allison, we've rebuilt this company from the ashes of the last one, and it's going great.
So we'll make sure that people are checking out Nice Healthcare and learning more about that, especially in the markets where it's available, I would imagine. And that just sounds like such a awesome solution to the problem right now.
Yeah, huge problem.
You had mentioned earlier how you want your days to look. One of my favorite quotes that I bring up almost every other episode is the Annie Dillard quote, "How we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives." And it is, to me, just the simple idea of the small things we do each day become the blur of a life we look back on.
Yeah.
And so you had mentioned wanting more freedom to spend your days in a way that allowed you to stay in bed longer, or to be able to read everything that your kids bring home from school. How do your days look now? You're building a company. You are spending time with family. What does a typical day look like for Thompson?
Yeah. I'll admit it was much easier before we had children. Doing it with children adds an incredible amount of complexity, to the whole thing. You could get more sleep, you could rest. There's just a lot more wiggle room, so it's a lot different than it used to be. So on a high level, my wife and I switch off staying home with our second son. So our first son's in second grade, so he goes to school and he's there, and some days are longer because he has karate and soccer and things of that nature. But even for him, we've intentionally significantly limited his activities compared to most of his peers. We've said you can do two things. And even that sometimes seems like too much. Sometimes we just say it's good for you to be home and just sit and be quiet, and reflect, and not be programmed, all the time. So it's a little sidetrack, but it makes a big impact on your day. If you have kids, how much you program them. So I get up very early, and my wife requires more sleep than I do, and that's something that I've just always done. She gets to sleep as long as she wants. That's just my husbandly duty, I suppose, and I'm honored to do that for her. And so I take care of the children in the morning. They get up, and I get their breakfast ready and get them ready for the day. And before we had kids, I'd wake up around 4 a.m. I do my workout. I'm big into resistance training and weightlifting for its efficiency. Just one of the most efficient ways to stay in shape, you build muscle mass, and you're burning more calories at rest. Like there's just a science behind it that plays into my whole obsession with efficiency. So lifting weights is like a must, whereas cardio is, to me, is like secondary. Like cardio it's inefficient. You get all sweaty. It takes a long time. 5-mile run, depending on how fast you're running, that's like, 20 to 40 minutes, depending on your speed. You got to cool off, stretch, take a shower. You're like sweating in the shower. So you got to like wait. I mean,
you don't wait after. I always get dressed too soon. After I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So you just like lose hours and hours of time. Whereas I got my weights in my basement, the full setup. I go down there. And so now these days I can't get up. I can't get up at 4 every morning because my kids gets up with me. So then I'm just like hamstrung, or they didn't sleep well in the night. So I need to sleep a little later, so these days, getting up, typically between like 5 and 6, getting up, get the kids ready. And then a lot of times they work out with me. So for them, like working out with me is like a thing, and I work while I work out, so I do a lot of my emailing while I'm working out between sets, because that's, to me, it's just very efficient. Like I'm not just going to sit there while I'm doing the set. And if my kids are with me, we play between sets. So they have their own little weights and they do their thing sometimes and play around. And then we like play tag in our basement. We have an unfinished basement, so we play tag between my sets. And like the next set, then they'll watch me do my set and then we'll play again, or I'll answer emails. So I try and finish all that up, by, 8 or 9 o'clock, the workout, getting cleaned up, getting the kids ready, all that kind of stuff. And then on the days that I not watching my son, then it's just kind of meetings, or planning and analysis, strategy, like working on the companies, pretty hardcore. On the days that I do have my 2-year-old, it's kind of intermittent. I work during nap time. I schedule a lot of meetings, recurring meetings during nap time. Or, we go places where we're walking and running around and I can answer emails, on my phone, or, have my AirPods in and have a quick phone call to hash out some business stuff, things of that nature, but definitely not as focused. And then to us, there's no weekend for my wife and I. So there's just days. Any day could be the weekend. Yep. And any weekend could be a weekday. Yeah. And so we actually like that flexibility, that we can turn Wednesday into a weekend if we want to, or treat Saturday as if it's a weekend. We are limited by other people's schedules, of course, the normal kind of pace and rhythm of the universe. So that doesn't always work, but yeah, I do a lot of work on the weekend, especially on the second company, Relate. A lot of work gets done on the weekend or in the evening, because that kind of work just requires like sitting down and just a lot of quiet time. My wife and I share equally in household duties, so I shouldn't say equally. I should say we do different things. Like I clean the bathroom, like she does the laundry. For some reason, that's just the way things settled out in our
division
rhythm.
of labor. Yeah.
And I don't mind cleaning the bathroom, and she doesn't mind doing laundry. We help with the household chores equally, all that kind of stuff. Pretty, I think, normal for a modern family. Nothing spectacular there. We eat out a lot, just for efficiency's sake. It's not the best thing, the healthiest thing, or even the most financially sound thing. But when you're running your own businesses, time is money, and, if she can be doing something and make like $2,000, like don't have time to make dinner, you just buy the dinner, for goodness sake. So, I mean, so we do that to save time. Our kids go to bed around 8 o'clock, and lots of times my wife and I need to work in the evening, but we have been carving out more time to just like not be working, after they go to bed. And lately I've been staying up later, risking the 2-year-old waking up early and not getting enough sleep, to write music and to write, so it's like, I know that the best time for me to write music or write is like in the evening, even though I'm a morning person and I'm not very productive, like after like 2 PM, in terms of creativity, a lot of my creativity, comes like at night.
Fascinating.
So sometimes I have to stay up late, because like I'm writing a song and it's just coming, just everything's working out, coming together really well. And I could try it in the morning and I couldn't, but on business stuff, strategy, like I can like nail that stuff out like 6 a.m. I'm on point, with the company. So I've kind of been balancing, staying up late working on creative projects versus, getting up early and working on business.
Fascinating. That's the everything except for being a morning person and getting up early. I've always struggled to be clear-minded in the morning. That's why we're sitting here starting at 11 a.m. Because I get up at 9. I get up much later, and we're usually up later till midnight, 1, sometimes 2, depending. But I found the same thing with music, writing music, creative projects. It's always in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why that is. It's just a different energy.
It is a different energy, and even the time of year for me, like I love the fall and the autumn and the kind of the magic that surrounds it. And a lot of my music writing happens like fall through early winter, is when I do a lot of that music writing. Whereas in the summertime and spring, it's more like writing, like, handwriting in the book. And even the book I've been working on, I'm writing it by hand, versus typing it. Because I just feel a little bit more connection with the material, and just feel a little bit more, find it more easier to be creative, writing it out by hand.
Yeah. It's funny, one of the guests from season 1, Brooke McAllery, who's a 2-time author, she does a podcast called the Slow Home Podcast.
Okay.
And she said that too. And it blew my mind a little bit. And now I'm hearing it again, that I can't imagine writing a book by hand. For me, I think my brain sometimes struggles to slow down enough to just get it out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always end up typing, but I do think I write better by hand. But for me, it feels so much slower, and maybe that's a good thing. But yeah, that's interesting. So you prefer writing by hand?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like journaling by hand, but I wonder if if I should try more long form.
Yeah,
long form writing by hand. I have to ask about the workout. I'm always curious, is there a particular program you follow or something that you got started on that sort of evolved, or is there anything you follow, or are you just doing what feels good?
So I'd say it's a mixture of doing what feels good versus kind of picking up tips and tricks along the way. Mm-hmm. And so I made a major change to my workout about 2 or 3 months ago. So the resistance training anyways. For some reason I was watching something, and then on YouTube, there's videos that come after. So I think it was Seth Rogen. I don't know who it was, but someone came on after, some well-known guy, and he was talking about, he had a guest.
Joe Rogan, maybe?
Joe
the
Rogan.
MMA guy?
Yeah, that's who it was. And I don't know who he is. It was my first exposure to him, and he had this guest online that was just kind of, blowing up the whole traditional workout, and exercise and athleticism. And basically it was rooted in like flow theory, where flow is that state where, time goes by really fast and you could basically do it forever, and, your energy consumption and expenditure is like all kind of aligned, that kind of stuff. And he didn't say that, but what he was describing sounded like applying that to workouts. And he said that you should never be sore after a workout. And he was like, and I know all you CrossFit people and all you gym rats are out there like hating at me and going, boo, like F you, you're like whatever. And he's like, you guys are all doing it wrong. He's like, screw you CrossFit people and, and big, huge guys in the gym, you're doing it wrong. And he's like, you should never be sore. And he gave all these examples like the Russian wrestling team and all these top athletes, Muhammad Ali, boxers and all this stuff, where their workouts were by normal people's standards like super light. Like you would wonder, like, are they even working out? And so I watched this thing. I was like, okay, I'm gonna switch it up, because I was in that school. Like you squat and you squat till you cry. Free weights.
And you can not quite walk the next day.
And you can't walk the next day. Yeah. And if you can walk, you didn't do enough. I mean, so I've been trying it out, and what I did is my previous workout, what I was doing, I'm really into compound resistance training, so I don't do very many single joint, weights, so it's full body squats, deadlifts, calf raises, shoulder press, using my own body's resistance. So, my pull-ups, things of that nature. Probably the only single joint, I do is arm curl. And then my long-term tactic was I just lift till fatigue, you know, because I have a tendency to bulk up really faster than I want to, you know, and like it's just genetic. Like my brothers are all the same way, you know, like just huge muscular frame if we wanted to, you know, and so I didn't want that, but I want to maintain a certain muscle mass. So I just do one set till fatigue, you know. So you can imagine, you know, some of my sets were pretty long, like my normal squat set, and I didn't lift as much as I knew I could.
Right.
You know, so like my squats, for example, since you asked, you know, squats, you know, my basic thing was 30 reps all in a row, no rest, 215.
Okay.
You know, so not like super heavy, you know, but not super light either, kind of in between 30 reps, you know, pull-ups, as many as I could do, you know, one-legged, all my leg workouts besides squats, one-legged, you know, like to make sure, you know, even development, all that kind of stuff. But I was always sore and tired. Like I was always tired, always sore. And then, but I felt like this kind of this macho kind of sense.
There's something about
like,
that.
Yeah, like, yes, my pecs are like really tight.
Yeah,
my hamstrings, you know. And so what I did is I cut everything in half. And then do it every day is what I've been doing for 2 months. And
how does it feel?
It's been crazy. I'm not sore. I'm not tired. The workout's faster. So it saves me time. And I'm stronger. And I've added muscle mass. You know, cutting everything in half, not being sore. Like seriously, sometimes I'm like doing the dips and I stop and I don't even feel like I did anything.
Did I do anything?
Yeah, did I do anything? You know, squats, cut it in half. I know I could go 2 to 3 times longer. It's been crazy. It's working. So higher energy, no, not sore, getting stronger, you know, and I can tell I'm getting stronger because I can tell at the point where I'm feeling fatigue is like keeps on getting pushed out, you know. So I would recommend it to people to give it a try.
I might.
You know, if you're trying resistance training, and I actually think it's probably safer. You know,
it's gotta be.
It's way
safer.
Yeah, because I mean, as I've been getting older, you know, in some of the workouts, you feel the tendons and the joints, and the recovery time is taking a little bit longer.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not macho. Your body wasn't meant to do that.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's actually better for me too.
I always ask now because in the beginning of the year, Amy and I started doing more cardio, just getting back into fitness. I'd had a rough year before that, and I just kind of wasn't taking care of myself very well. And in March, a friend introduced me to Strong Lifts, the program around compound lifting. So it's the 5 major compound lifts: deadlift, squats, bench press, overhead press,
overhead,
and barbell rows. So the leaned over, pulling up for
rows.
the
the lat still, all that
Exactly,
stuff. Yeah,
exactly.
I love it. That's all you need.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
And I started doing that in March, and I squatted for the first time in my. I'm 33. I squatted for the first time in my whole life this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Free weights
with the
bar.
The bar.
All right.
So I started. My friend he showed me the form and everything. He put the bar in like maybe 50 pounds on the bar, so about 95 pounds or so. I went down and just like everything just went like oh no, and I was sore for 2 weeks after that, but I was hooked.
Yeah.
And it's okay, so I can try this. I can do this. So I started doing the Strong Lifts program, and my squat over time got up to about 135. And then just 2 weeks ago, I'm doing 5 sets of 5 at 275.
Nice.
And so it's been this slow, like a little bit up, a little bit down. If I eat more ice cream, it goes up a little more. And, you know, it's been amazing too, seeing the relationship now, the keen relationship between the food I eat and the results of how I do. I've never seen such a close relationship between those things before. So I've really enjoyed it, and that's why I'm always geeked out now. I'm always curious about what people are doing, and I've never been as strong as I am today, and that's something for me. That's something that's been really important and significant. But with the knee issue and things like that, I have to be more careful. And so I am curious just about. I think I just learned this last week. I was doing some kettlebells with a friend, and he told me about the Russian idea of greasing the groove. It's like you don't work out to exhaustion. You just every day you just do a little bit. And that's fascinating. Now it's coming back into my life again. So I think I'm gonna have to
awesome.
try.
I love that.
To try that philosophy. I think that makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
Partially because for me, I don't know if it's the same for you, but for me, exercise and getting out of the house or just going into that space, it's such a mental clarity thing too, of just feeling like I did that thing of moving and connecting with my body in a way that helps me in so many other areas.
Oh,
too.
Absolutely. Yeah. My wife tries to keep the kids away from it, let me have some sessions by myself, because when I'm there alone, there's this creativity, that comes as you're focused on just working your body and investing in your body. I read a study a little bit ago that found that, people in their 80s that had exercised regularly, particularly resistance training, building muscle mass, basically had the fitness of 40-year-olds, if they'd done it consistently, throughout, and because your body changes, when you're adding muscle, it has to support it, the structures, everything. It's way more important than cardio, in my opinion. For me, I can achieve the same physical appearance results by just modifying diet that cardio gives you. Without, but it's hard to change your diet. I love pastries and donuts and cakes. So, it's hard. So, but yeah, we're investing in our future, we're investing in ourselves when we're old, and, I want to be strong, when I'm old.
Yeah, I can relate. Yeah. The diet thing is hard for me too. I've always found it better when I can avoid sugar. I don't know if this is real, but the idea of an endomorph versus, someone that puts on weight easily. I put on weight easily, not necessarily in the form of muscle. So that's been a line that I've had to figure out because I'm bulking now and trying to add muscle in places I've really literally never had it. And so I'm now figuring out what this can look like and what the diet needs to look like in order to do that and not be frustrated that my lifts aren't going up. And
I could tell. When I walked in, I was like, man, this dude's like hitting the gym.
Seriously?
No, I could totally tell. No, you can tell. Not to geek out and be all macho, but like there's something like admirable about a dude that is disciplining himself to work out, and invest in his body. And you can see it. And it's not about sex appeal. It's not about any of that. It's about discipline. And there's some guys that can lift every day, all day, and they'll never add a pound of muscle, but if they took their shirt off, you'd be able to tell, for sure. So no, because I haven't seen you, in 4 years.
It's been been a couple of years.
Yeah. So now, you're just built like totally different. It's totally visible to someone who hasn't seen you, on a regular basis.
I appreciate that because I really do, because it's hard for me to even know if I know I feel different.
No,
but
you look a lot different.
Funny. Okay.
Like way different. Like everything. Like not just your face, like the shape and everything. It's like it's someone that goes to the gym.
I appreciate it. I'm like I may be tearing up a little bit right now just because like that means a lot to me, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
That's what I've been working on and trying to get there, but I can never tell. To me I look exactly the same as I did. So.
Yeah. Same here. Like yeah, no, it's all good. And just one last thing about that flow thing. Like the last thing that guy said that was so amazing to me. He was like, okay, what if you have a guy? Just think of any sport. You're practicing some skill, but practicing the skill makes you sore and tired and exhausted, or even just lifting weights. So say you rep 10 times and you stop, and you don't even break a sweat. Your heart rate doesn't get elevated. We do that every day. You got 70 reps in per week. Compare that to the guy that can only work out 1 day a week. Upper body or lower body, he reps 20 or 30 or whatever. You have like 40 more reps on that guy, like 40 more. So you just like think about any sport. How many shots at the hoop do you take? 70. Or you only go to the gym once a day, or once a week. And you take 30 shots. You're just going to get better by sheer volume. Yeah. And I think that's what's happening. With me in my experience, just a sheer volume. Like for squats, and for example. I could only do it once a week, so 30 reps all at once, no break. Now I'm getting, I guess I'm getting like 100, somewhere around 100 reps per week. Same weight, but 100, so it's like 70 more reps on a weekly basis.
This it's so beautiful because what you're talking about goes into this whole idea of the micro habit. I've always joked that if you're starting out something new and you are too sore, too tired, too mentally exhausted or too overburdened to do it again the next day,
yes,
you're not going to be able, you've missed the thing. It should always start easier, start smaller and more frequently in this. And so you're like, I haven't thought about weightlifting that way, and you're reinforcing this for me right now. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think so often we feel immense resistance to something that would change our lives substantially, but it just feels so big.
Yes.
And feeling like, well, if I do 2 push-ups every day, what really is that going to do? Well, if you did 2 every day this week, I bet you could do 3 every day next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
the same thing with diet too. Like, you know, my wife and I really got into Tim Ferriss's, book, Slow Carb, and, we did it a couple times. It's just not sustainable, right? You get the results. It works. There's no lie. Like, it works, the thing I took away from the book is like, what's the one thing I can change that's like manageable? If someone who deeply has a passion for donuts and pastries and all this stuff, and one of the critical things in the book was like, when you break your fast in the morning, one of the worst things you can do for yourself is put off your breakfast and then also make that breakfast high carb, high sugar, and so for me, I found that just eliminating carbs from breakfast as often as I can has amazing impact on my health, because by dinner time, I'm going to be eating that donut, and, all this kind of stuff, but the whole chemical breakdown, everything that he goes through about eliminating it for breakfast, is enough to like produce results and maintain certain results, that I want to see, but there's no way I could give up carbs like every meal, and eat like bloody beans and, avocado.
I used to swear off carbs completely, not avoid them completely, but like think that, okay, when I don't eat carbs, I lose weight.
Yeah.
And that was always my fitness goal. I just want to lose weight. I wasn't worried about getting stronger. I always gained weight easily. So it's like, okay, when I'm involved in fitness, my only goal is like, all right, drop pounds.
Yep.
This experience of this year has fundamentally changed the idea of, if I build more muscle, I will burn more calories day to day, and I'll feel better. I'll be stronger. Like, I pulled my back like lifting up a basket of laundry last year, and now I'm deadlifting, 225 or whatever. It's not, it's not great for my size and weight, but like it's an evolution, right?
Yeah.
And just the thought of that has been crazy. But now it's like, I'm learning it's hard to build muscle without carbs.
It is. Yeah.
And these are these like small evolutionary things that I'm learning about how my body works and how these things, it's just mind blowing when you get into this stuff. I love it.
Yeah. And I love this transparency too, right? Like so many, entrepreneurs, you hear them talk and it's like, they're perfect. There's nothing wrong with them, so like for me, like when I eat too many carbs and sugar, like I get like a belly really easily. Like I won't gain weight anywhere else, except my 6-pack will turn into a 1-pack, so it's just like, it's like in my face, and I can see the relationship between what I'm eating and just, it's hard. I don't like vegetables. I was happy there was a romaine contamination,
Check that one off for the next little while. Yeah.
Like I'm not eating any salad right now. Like it's too risky. Like that. I mean, talk about risk. Like that's a risk I was very happy to avoid, so I'm with you. Like we all have that thing, right? And it's just so hard. And some weeks I'm better than others. That's
a perfect way to put it. Same for me. As far as I go down this journey, I'm a guy that makes videos about habits, and I'm doing my best.
Yep.
Is what I'll say. And there are weeks that are better than others. Sometimes that I have more discipline around sugar, around different things. And sometimes I just like,
it's like, for whatever.
It's just right there, and I'm just going to eat it, and this can be okay.
Yep. Yeah. It was worth it.
It was worth it. Yep. It's just what it is. How do you foster, especially being at home, working from home, as we are in a similar capacity?
Yes.
How do you mitigate distraction in your day-to-day life, and do you change your relationship with technology to do that?
Yeah. I would say that for me, even though I wasn't familiar formally with this state of flow, but I've always naturally applied it to all areas of my life. Like some people are like, oh, work's over, shut it off. Like you can't even reach them. They're like inaccessible. and I just don't and can't work that way. I'm more about a perpetual state of equilibrium, and I want to stay in that state. And that equilibrium point might change depending on, what's going on, that year or that month, but it's a flow. So for me, with technology, we don't have a TV in our house, so it's not like we can just plop down in front of the TV. We've just never really had a TV, so I think that's helped us quite a bit. I personally I don't play video games. I don't play games on my phone. Social media is purely for business. It's not like something I delve into because I enjoy it or because I get sucked in. I go there because I have some kind of objective. So I don't get sucked into it. But I do check it frequently, to stay relevant in the industry. Email, get a ton of emails, and then text messaging is more friends, than business. And I'm pretty much accessible anytime, but I do put down my phone at 8 o'clock, basically. And I don't look at the phone. One of it is I'm not a good sleeper, so I have to be cognizant of kind of preparing for sleep. So I can't be looking at a phone screen, too much before bed. And I need to be reading. I need to read like a physical book,
I was going to ask, is there a nighttime routine you've sort of to create that environment?
Yeah, so definitely putting the phone down and charging it, at 8 o'clock. I might look at it every once in a while, but I really don't look at it much past 8. Sometimes my wife and I watch Netflix movies, late at night in bed, but that's not like an everyday of the week thing. The music, I'm sometimes writing music in the evening, but I always end the evening reading like a physical book, like actual paper and ink. Like I would consider myself an early adopter of almost all technology. So I was part of the Smart Things Kickstarter campaign, that I still have the same set of Smart Things devices from the Kickstarter. I didn't buy them, from Samsung or anything like that. We have an Alexa, we have all this stuff. So definitely technology is a big part of our lives. Our car has a lot of technology involved with it. But we've always strived to not let it become a distraction. And what it gets really complicated with children, so for us with our son, what we've done for him is he doesn't get to watch like programming on an iPod or iPad or something during the week, but on Saturday he can watch as much as he wants. And our philosophy, it might work, it might not. It's a grand experiment. So our philosophy there is like, if he's sitting there getting bored, he can't just default to a screen, ask for the screen. Like he has to like kick it old school, think of something to do, play with his toys, his games, ask one of us to do something with him, something of that nature. Whereas on Saturday, he can just like completely disconnect and like just binge and like all he wants, and we've just figured that we think that the challenge of being creative outside of technology 6 days a week is worth the binging, for 12 hours on Saturday, if that's what he wants to do. He doesn't always get to do it because sometimes we have activities that we need to do. He recently, talking about habits, he was a finger picker, like really bad, biting his nails, picking his fingers, his skin, all that kind of stuff. He even had an infection, had to get an antibiotic for like 3 weeks. So my wife was like, you know what, if you stop picking your skin and your nails and everything, we'll get you a video gaming system, because he hasn't had one to date. He doesn't even know really what it is, but he really wanted one, especially he wanted the Switch, Nintendo Switch. He wanted Zelda, and he did it. He developed a new habit or kicked an old habit. My wife, we were like, okay, you go 21 days, without picking, and then we'll get you the thing. And we got him the thing, wow. So technology was like a reward, so now we're figuring out, okay, how do you fit in like the gaming system into the whole model that we have developed, so it's tough though. My wife and I are on our phones a lot, and I'm very cognizant of how much we're on our phone. Now the iPhone tells you how much you're on your phone. And yeah, like sure, for me, like it's like almost all productivity, in the little bar down there. But it's still a lot, and I wish it didn't have to be as much. So part of it is I almost view it as a season of my life too. I tell my son, I'm like, look, I'm not playing on this phone. Like, I don't want to be looking at this phone. And this phone is the path to freedom. Freedom in very short order, where I don't have to have my phone with me.
Yeah, the model you're describing, it's like this low carb diet kind of which is funny. What popped into my head. It's like 6 days of discipline and not allowing yourself to twitch, to just fill the space.
Yes.
I always say that the twitch is the thing that is like a sponge that absorbs all of your in-between moments. And it's when you feel the discomfort and you just, the screen is a solution to that discomfort. The boredom, the hunger, and so it's interesting. I think your experiment in my brain seems like a really good one, in that it makes sense to me that, all right, you have your fill, you have your day, you eat whatever you want, and then the other days you stay focused, disciplined, knowing that, all right, no, I'll have my time. That's very fascinating.
Yeah, and when you say it like that, I hadn't even thought about it. It also creates this kind of management of future benefit type of thing, and waiting, for something versus getting it right away.
Totally.
Yeah.
Having that to look forward to, and then feeling a little sick because you ate too much sugar.
Which he does.
Right.
At the end of the day, he was like, I feel like I didn't talk to anybody. I was like, now let's play. Let's do something. On Sunday. So that's it's
the really crazy part about that is that I think that when we don't limit ourselves, and we're just in that mode all the time, you don't feel it.
Nope.
You don't feel you're disconnected between that feeling of like the psyche of, oh my gosh, I didn't do anything with anyone today, or I didn't connect with myself in any way today. Other than this external thing.
Yes.
But when it's isolated to a single day, all of a sudden you have a clear comparison to how you're feeling, what you did, and a way to analyze that.
Yes.
And that's interesting.
I like that. Wow. Huh. I'm feeling better about this experiment.
It's good. It's good. I think it's a smart one. All right. Well, let's. I've just been really enjoying this conversation, and I would love to do a question with you, if you wouldn't mind grabbing a question out of that bowl right there. All right, so if you don't mind reading the question and then the name of who wrote it.
Sure. The question is, what is your end goal, and when will you know when you achieve it? Andy George.
Oh, so that's Andy from the YouTube channel How to Make Everything.
Okay.
Which is a fantastic channel all about him making a suit from scratch. Like
really?
Growing, shearing from scratch. He made a sandwich from scratch also. Took him 6 months and $1,500.
Whoa.
Fascinating YouTube channel. He's a previous guest on the show. So that's his question.
Okay, so what is my goal, and how will I know when I've achieved it? So, end goals. It's a couple goals. So in regards to my goal of freedom, so I said there's like three things, right? There's freedom, there's, changing the world, and then there's, revenge. So with freedom, I'll know I've achieved it when my time is not in any way tied to income. Like there's zero, it's completely severed. It's not that I'm super wealthy. It's just that there's no correlation between time working and income. So therefore I can do what I will with my time, and I'll know I'm doing that because I'll be hanging out with my wife, my kids, writing music and writing books, and volunteering. I'm giving back. When it comes to an impact on the world, I'll know that I've achieved it when our company has been the inspiration or maybe even the direct cause of systemic change in the healthcare system, whether it's a policy change, or a regulatory change or something like that, because sure, we're changing lives right now. Like we're already doing that, and I could be satisfied with that, but we're changing lives on the periphery. We're changing lives in spite of the way things are. We haven't actually changed the fabric of the healthcare industry. And then when it comes to revenge, this one I've kind of joked around with people. I'll know it when, some companies go out of business. That's basically what I want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, revolution.
Or they completely change and they're not the same company. Mm-hmm. Same name, maybe, same colors, but they just operate completely different than they do today, unrecognizable.
A forced model change because there's something better,
Yes.
more effective, more efficient.
Exactly.
Yeah, love it. Thompson, where can people find you and what you're working on online?
Sure. So I'm on Twitter, pretty active, at Thompson Adder on Twitter. LinkedIn, I'm also active. I respond to almost every message, so I have an open profile so you can see how to contact me there. Nice.healthcare is the URL for Nice Healthcare, and Relate Today is the relatetoday.com is for Relate.
Perfect. Thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks for having me.
All right. And that concludes our conversation with Thompson. I really took away some great things from this conversation, and I hope you did too. If you did enjoy this episode, it would mean the world to me if you took a moment to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast player of choice. Those kinds of things really help podcasts like this one get seen, and I would greatly appreciate it. You can find links to all the things mentioned, as well as additional information about this episode and the full-length video of the conversation at breakthetwitch.com/podcast015. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see you next week.